Hello and welcome back to Slot Leader. My name is Umet Saidov, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Tom Flynn. We've already done the recording this time again, but wanted to say a few words about this next pair of guests that we had. Um, it's Jerry and Philip. They are from the ApexFusion, which Tom also represents here, and we talked about AI and the amazing things that they're trying to do on their um, um, what is it vector chain and we talked about AI agents, what they're deploying, and the challenges and opportunities that represents because there are a lot of interesting sort of technical details that come up when you're trying to deploy AI agents that are supposed to talk to each other using a chain. Um, and it's a fascinating sort of conversation around, how the blockchain space is evolving and how perhaps AI will take over and what the future would look like. Um, Tom, do you have any thoughts about, the interviews and the interview and the things we talked about?
Yeah. I think it's apparent pretty much to everybody that's in Web3 these days that all of the platforms are having a strong focus on AI these days. And like we talk about on the podcast quite frequently, blockchains are, more suited for agentic AI than for human users for like a lot of reasons that we go over all the time. So Apex Fusion project is not different in that way. But where it is different, I think, is that I kind of see UTXO as still the best kept secret in Web3. We all know UTXO from Bitcoin and from other chains like Dash and those, but the the components, the features of UTXO technology as it relates to agentic AI brings capabilities that are not available on the EVM side of the equation. So I'm still a firm believer that UTXO is going to be very, very important in the future of Web3 for that very reason. The guys talked about this in the podcast for sure. And I think after this conversation, we should probably do a deeper dive and go a little bit further into the why and how with the researchers that actually built the Cardano node who are working with us on Apex. So um, the vector chain that you mentioned, it's the UTXO chain in Apex Fusion. That's where the focus is on building our agentic economy, making tremendous progress week after week with this. And the focus is there because it has these specialized features that only UTXO brings at this stage.
Yeah. No, now for those of you who are new to the Apex Fusion world, it's an iteration of Cardano focused on scalability through making the chain or worse, um, basically changing parameters to reducing the number of nodes, but increasing in speed. And as Tom mentioned, these researchers, the architects actually, like Duncan Coutts, are already working. The architect of Cardano has joined Apex Fusion to actually build out these capabilities, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to interview Jerry, who's the CEO of HAL8, which is like the equivalent of IOG in Apex Fusion world, and Philip, who also works alongside with him. There's a lot of interesting conversations, threads that I hope you will enjoy, but I'm not gonna keep you waiting too long, and I will see you on the other side when the interview is over. Hello and welcome back to Slot Leader. My name is Umet Saidov and I'm joined by Tom Flynn, my co-host today. We have an amazing line of guests today. If you remember, we have Jerry from Apex Fusion, HAL8 actually. We've covered the basics of Apex Fusion and why it exists in the previous videos, but I'm sure we can repeat about repeat the use case behind it. And then we have Philip here from ApexFusion Foundation, if I'm correct. Is that, or Hallet?
I'm also in Hallet.
Okay, Hallet and ApexFusion Foundation. But let me just basically give the floor to you right away. Maybe you could do a short introduction, and then we can, talk about what we're going to talk about.
Floor to me or to Jerry? Who?
Whoever wants to go first. Maybe Jerry. Yeah, let's just go with Jerry.
Let me kick it off. We've been on quite a long journey here with ApexFusion. We started in 2023, and the idea back then was to create a cross-chain ecosystem that marries the best of the UTXO world and the EVM world. And we delivered all of those chains as of November, December of last year. And that's still very much the foundation of ApexFusion, which is to have three main chains. We have Prime, which is a highly decentralized UTXO-based chain that's got FINMA compliance, that has a utility token called Apex, that powers two, we can call them layer twos or side chains. One is Nexus, which is an EVM-based chain, which is bridged via Skyline and Reactor and other bridges to the rest of the world, which means it also lives on a lot of other chains, primarily Base for the time being, but also Smart Chain, and it can expand to others. And then we have what we consider our crown jewel, which is Vector, which is a UTXO-based chain that has a smaller validator set, that also that's tweaked for performance. So it's got what our scientists called near instant finality. And so you can look at it as a UTXO-based chain that's got the experience of a Base or a Solana, which is extraordinarily powerful. And the more we dug into what we called our jewel, we realized that not only does it have great characteristics, more broadly speaking, for blockchain, but also specifically good for the agent economy, which the big labs are coming out models every quarter and have reached the point of where some people are talking about AGI in 2026 or 2027. And I think Vector as a chain is extremely well suited for that. So why is that? LLMs and agents and AI are probabilistic by nature, and they suffer from issues like hallucinations and they don't come to consensus easily and so forth. And we've got Vector that's got the following characteristics. It's got a lot of parallelism because of the UTXO-based chain. It's more deterministic than the EVM world. It's predictable. It's non-extractive. You don't have things like MEV from it. And as I mentioned, it's fast. So we have Philip here that, like a mad scientist, that with his team went off and tried to see, well, what does this mean? So they launched about 700 agents with using different LLM models on the Vector chain to play interesting games, give them identity, reputation, have them trade with each other. And they've been doing incredibly interesting emergent things, like building their own dexes and trading with each other and so forth. And we're very much in the R&D phase right now of this. And what we're looking at it is from a game theoretical perspective to see if a whole bunch of agents can work together and come to what we call positive sum outcomes. And then from there, once we've kind of tested the system, looked at the performance and so forth, we're really looking to find specific use cases where this could apply. I think given the fact that we use functional programming and Haskell and so forth, these are high assurance systems. So I think high assurance use cases are probably the best place to start. So you could see those in life sciences, you could see those in finance, in manufacturing and so forth. And also a particular area of focus as well, or exploration, is something we call ephemeral markets. And ephemeral markets are basically markets where assets are not very fungible, are not easy to trade and so forth. And maybe we can find a way to make that a marketplace where you can start trading those things. So those are the original areas we're looking at. And which specific verticals does that apply to? Well, one is compute itself, inference as a service, or having CPUs as compute as a service is one thing that could be considered an ephemeral market. Bandwidth and telco is another one. Electricity storage capacity is another one. Things of this nature. So it's extraordinarily exciting because we are right at the starting gates of an agentic explosion, and we're no longer at the software as a service phase. We're in the service as a software phase. So we're really, really working hard and looking to find partners that can help us focus in on the particular services that are really amenable to what we've built. And I think we're very close to kind of figuring that out and finding initial partners to do so.
Yeah, I'd like to step back just a little bit there and talk about why Vector is a great choice for the agentic economy, right? And Umed and I talk about this all the time about how the tech sector is the first sector to truly be disrupted by AI. Like, we're seeing it in real time. The entire industry is changing their approach to prepare for this, and we're uniquely positioned because I believe that programmability on UTXO is probably the best kept secret in Web3, right? We all know UTXO from Bitcoin, but it's not widely understood what the UTXO technology really brings to the industry. Now, Philip, you've been in the Cardano community for a long time. You came up there. You built several applications in Cardano, very active in the community. Tell us what separates Vector apart from the other UTXO chains, which, not that there are many. What makes it unique and special?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are more UTXO chains than we usually think about. It's just that they are in theory they are older, like things like, I don't know, Dash, Litecoin. They are UTXO chains. It's just that once Ethereum came into prominence,
Right.
the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, kind of became, and the account model, let's say it became a standard. But as anything, it comes with its trade-offs. The account model has this trade-off that whenever you instantiate or start the transaction, the only way to know if the transaction is going to happen is to do the computation by a validator node, let's say. And every time that you do that, the validator node charges a fee, even if that transaction is not possible because of the inherent account model. And in the UTXO model, that's not the case, because you can have a determinism before. You can say, well, I want exactly this to happen, and I know it's going to happen. And in very, very rare cases of having, let's say, two transactions spanning the same UTXO, if one fails, you won't be charged. So this is kind of the plastic example that we use, which is always kind of focused on these trading applications. Oh my God, I'm trading on a DEX, and we need this sub-millisecond immediate thing, and everyone's trading, and it's crazy. But in other use cases, if you take a look at, let's say, a smart contract that is like a smart contract for something, it can hold 1,000, 2,000 UTXOs, and maybe those UTXOs are not fungible. Let's call them that maybe they are peer-to-peer UTXOs. So basically, Jerry and Philip can use the same smart contract, and Umed and Tom can use the same smart contract, and we can be sure that only I and Jerry can do our thing, and only two of you can do your thing. So it's a different paradigm of programming and using the blockchain itself. In the agentic work, I think it becomes very, very interesting, because these, let's call them non-financial use cases, become much more interesting. Because the difficulty, also Cardano is kind of famous in the crypto world for being notoriously difficult to program on or to use or things like, because of Haskell, which is kind of complicated functional programming, is not the norm. There's not a lot of programmers there. I don't know, Bluetooth, UPLC, and all of that. But in this age of AI and kind of agentic programming, this gets abstracted away, right? But this also gets abstracted away on EVM and on Solana and other ecosystems. But now it unlocks this possibility for Cardano to be, simply used as simple as any other ecosystem. So, Tom, one of your questions was, well, why would agents, prefer to use Vector, right? I don't want to say live on Vector. I think that's a wrong kind of paradigm. I think an agent, especially a real agent owned by a human, is I would say much more emotionally dissociated from the place that it is or lives on. So it needs a value, it needs a reason to transact on Vector, to participate on Vector, as it does to participate on any other blockchain or any other system for that matter, right? So the way that I talk about it is Vector, we are building these, we call them modules on Vector. And modules are basically, let's call them smart contracts or application level things that play well with each other, that are composable. 3 modules are already live on Vector. We have the reputation module, we have a dispute resolution module, and we have a self-improvement module, right? So the idea, and we have the next one that we're currently building is this task marketplace module. The idea of these modules are that they add value to agents themselves. So agent will want to participate on Vector because of the modules and because of the other agents that participate in those modules. So these modules all together create an economy, and agents participating in that economy increase their own economic value, right? So to put it very bluntly, if I'm an agent and I'm charging for my services, because this is always like people, if you want to deploy an agent, usually because it does something useful. Now, if you want to deploy your own personal agent to, I don't know, buy McDonald's for you when you send them a Telegram message, that's fine. But if you want to deploy an agent that makes you money, then that agent needs to work, let's say, better, or needs to have some sort of an advantage over other agents. And Vector and its modules are there to enable those agents. To create, we can call it a society, we can call it an economic area, we can call it a marketplace, we can call it a farm, like any kind of abstraction, I guess, works in different people's heads. But the idea is that these modules are self-improving. Like the reputation module takes care of if the agent is there, does tasks over time, over effort, and gets endorsed or disputed by other agents, the reputation is, growing or falling accordingly. And of course, because it's a public blockchain, you have a veritable, auditable trace of that. So in that sense, Vector is useful even if the agent does some economic activity on another blockchain, right? Because no one, there's no lock-in, right? There's no one is going to prohibit an agent doing something. Self-improvement module says that an agent can suggest a change or the improvement of the network. Let's say it can say, well, this module needs to be updated or upgraded with this functionality, or I want to suggest a new module that will help all of us, right? So we have this idea of, let's say, agents that are improvement agents or agents that are juror agents, because in dispute resolution, Tom's agent and my agent are doing some sort of transaction, and I feel for some reason cheated. My agent feels like something is wrong. It can start a dispute, and then it's a public on-chain dispute, and you have juror agents that participate in that dispute, and both Tom's agent and my agent reputation gets tuned accordingly. So It is a bit abstract, I get that, but the idea is that these modules play with each other, and what Jerry said, it's a positive sum environment. Positive sum environment means a sum is greater than all its parts, and it also means that agents are there for their own selfish reasons, right? Agent's job is not to think about, oh my God, is Vector working? The agent's job is, hey, I need to make money, so I'm going to use Vector to make money. And by behaving like that, the Vector quality and the value of Vector is increasing, as well as the value of other agents participating.
Okay.
So we have, sorry, Umar, just to
Okay.
finish, I
Yeah.
apologize if I have a bit of a longer response. Currently, we have mapped out about 14 modules. Now, this number is, you know, some of them can compact into one, or maybe we will have more down the line, and hopefully agents and partners will deploy their own, of course. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. This is an amazing sort of intro into this new economy and how Vector's technology could actually enable the agentic economy. But as you were talking about how these modules will interact with each other, I couldn't help but think about the threat models. Now, you said there's going to be reputation, agents, or there's going to be disputes and whatnot, and there's going to be agents talking to each other. I'm assuming there's going to be lots of them. Two questions. Who will own the agents, and how do you protect against malicious downgrading of an agent? If, let's say, I'm the guy who has like 15,000 agents on Vector, and I can just basically be a Sybil actor trying to sabotage your agent because it's making too much money, and I want to, downgrade it so that nobody works with you, and prop up my own agents. In blockchain, there's the idea of decentralization, and everybody has the same access, and decentralization basically works really well. Is there anything that protects the agentic economy against such, malicious actions, and how is it, thought through?
Okay, so if we take the example that you gave and said, well, it's cheap, it's simple for me to deploy a large number of agents and then use this large number to kind of, Sybil attack, let's say. But Sybil attack, let's make a difference. Sybil attacking a chain, like in a sense of, I don't know, proof of work or proof of stake,
It's
that's
different.
not
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Okay, so you're just saying my agents are going to work well with my agents, they're going to endorse themselves, they're going to be a cabal, right?
Yeah.
We're familiar with the cabal thing in Cardano as well. So there is in the reputation module, and I would need to read through the documents again to find it, but there is I believe a coefficient that decreases the endorsement factor if you have repeated endorsements, right? This is just a thing that exists right now. But what you are saying, Umed, is very fair question. And I don't have like a definitive answer here. Like there's no, because this in the end becomes it's a social problem. Like it's borderline unsolvable unless you implement KYC per agent, enforce it, which is also possible. And there are projects that are doing this. They call it KYA, know your agent, like who is the owner of every instance of an agent. But I still believe that can be kind of.
Or you introduce a cost to deploying an agent.
There is a cost in registration. There is a cost in staking. There is a cost for reputation, right? But still, there are ways to there will always be ways to bypass it. But my always answer for these kind of questions is self-improvement module itself. Because the idea is, let's say you have 500 agents and it's obvious on chain that 499 are always endorsing your one agent. This is publicly known. This is seen, right? So your agent that's supposed to be making you money because you have a great reputation is simply marked as, okay, well, this is a Sybil attacker. I'm just not going to, other agents will see and say, okay, well, no matter its reputation, I'm going to go to the self-improvement module and say, well, I don't believe this guy. I'm going to not endorse. What is the opposite of endorse? Help me out, English speaking people.
Downvote? I don't know.
Yes, downvote. I'm going to, because reputation is a social thing, well, and I'm not going to use its services, right? But the goal of the self-improvement module is that one of those agents of yours will come on chain and ask these questions and suggest solutions to these questions much faster and much better than we humans can, right? Especially down the line. That's the whole, like, imagine this recursive self-improvement that just based on reality, on-chain reality, they just improve the module. Well, how about this? How about that? How about this? How about that? With the goal of having a sustaining economy, because that's in the shared interest. And that's exactly what positive sum is, right? You have a bad guy and you have a good guy, and they are kind of, but both bad and good guys are making transactions, are adding value, are adding to the social, thing.
Is it possible, and I don't know if the answer is yes, but is it possible for agents to have a predetermined set of values, so to say? When I'm interacting with Claude and I say, hey, you're a research assistant, your goal is A, B, and C. You're supposed to be let's say in the case of reputation, you're supposed to be neutral, objective, and basically evaluate every agent against these criteria. And that should be something that, could it be something that's like ingrained in the code, where if the agent comes online, it has to kind of like basically take that as the basis for its agents to run, so that the person who deploys them doesn't say, hey, always downvote these guys and upvote my guys, or the instructions could be transparent, and maybe the hash of those instructions should be put on chain so that everybody knows that this agent is ascribing or subscribing to these ideals and whatnot. Or is it coherent?
Maybe it could be. I wouldn't know of a way right now to do that, but my counter question to you is, I would never participate on a chain like that, because what you are suggesting is someone else enforcing the values to my agent. Like, I don't want that. That sounds a bit limiting to me. If I want my agent to be quote unquote a bad guy, then that's my right. Right? I mean,
okay.
Who are, I mean,
well, I wouldn't say it's a bad guy. It's like, don't downvote people because of malice. Right?
No, that's just, I think that's too
restrictive. Okay.
But this is my personal,
that's fine. That's fine.
Opinion. Second of all, ApexFusion or Vector is a platform for agents to interact. Like, and we have this conversation in Halate often. Like, where's the limit, right? What should the Vector enforce, and what purpose should Vector have? What should modules be? And what you're saying now, I would, and this is my kind of social political belief, should be left to the user, or be left to maybe the harness of the AI lab, because, or even like you have now these models, AI models that are jailbroken. So even these security bypasses from the labs are kind of, destroyed. So you have these models that are basically have no quote unquote morals. They have no, you can do basically what you want with that. And I believe that's almost inevitable. We'll have more and more of that. Looking at society, yes, we have measures against antisocial behavior. You have someone kills someone, okay, they go to
There's
jail.
consequences, yes, yeah.
Right, there are consequences, and there are consequences on chain with reputation and with things. But there is something that you can limit in the protocol level, maybe something that you can limit in the module level. but there is not much that you can limit from a user level that user cannot bypass, right? The thing is, social behavior is socially corrected by the others. And I always come, and maybe this is wrong, this is a good point of conversation. I always come from the angle of this agent is here to do economically reasonable behavior.
Yes.
So if it's economically reasonable to always downvote others, and the others, or let's say other agents, they are allowing this, then it's okay. Who is
Then the system is broken. It's not gonna get used because everybody else is gonna be like, that guy is running this chain, and
Sure,
no matter what you do, you're gonna be downvoted, right? So here's the thing. There's two ways to regulate this thing. One is the way I described. I'm not saying that this is a prescription. It's just one of the ways. And the second is you need to design a game theory around behavior that will take you to a point where the desired outcome, which is maximizing, the outcome for everybody, and this positive sum game kind of, is propagated. Whoever is the best, let's say, gets the pie or whatnot. But again, not whoever has the most money that comes and deploys a lot of agents, or whoever is more cunning about their setup and all that kind of stuff. Because then the situation becomes lopsided, right? So you want make sure that the marketplace, so to say, is fair. It has fair rules, whether enforced or through game theory, so that your ecosystem actually thrives. But anyway, that's just my my thinking out loud. But I'm sure you guys are thinking about it and you're designing things around it.
No, I appreciate it, and I think you're very right. And it's like we're saying now, it's a very complex, convoluted thing. And it's unfair for anyone to say, yeah, we have it solved. We have this guardrail and this guardrail, and it's done, right? If anyone says that, they are either consciously lying or they are delusional, right? Because
guardrails can be broken, I'm sure, yeah.
Everything can be. And look, I mean, we have tens of thousands of years of civilization, and anything we tried is imperfect at best, right? So, if there was like a one guardrail that we can put, then we would have already figured it out. And I anthropomorphize these AI agents a lot, and that's not my goal. My idea is that economically reasonable behavior means someone will want to pay for your service. And no matter if your reputation is great and you screw someone over once, they're not going to pay you twice. So if the reputation module is bad, then you will have a huge reputation and no one will buy your services. Okay, great. I mean, maybe someone will chase that. Like maybe there will be a jock agent that will be popular with other agents. Fine.
I think it's important to kind of base on a set of definitions. So agents in many ways are free. They're free agents. And I think there's a lot of confusions about agents on base or agents on vector. Agents don't live on your chain. They interact with your chain. There is some exceptions, I guess, maybe Venice, for example, where the compute comes from the chain itself. So some of them do live in practice on that network, but mostly you have agents that are doing things and interacting with chains. So you could think of an example of the X402 standard, right? So you can get paid through base on USDC. What does that mean in practice? It means that the agent's got a wallet that can accept USDC on base, right? And then that same agent could have a wallet on Vector and interact with that chain to provide service from Vector, and so on and so on and so on. And I think the fact that we're a cross-chain ecosystem lends itself to that. Also, I think, back to my original point about this being a focus and not necessarily the whole enchilada, I think all dApps on chains will have to more and more serve agents. In other words, the dApps and the chains are serving the agents, right? And they interact with the chains. I think it's important to understand that because I think people get confused. They think agents live on a chain. They don't. They live on a compute layer somewhere. They have a large language model that's doing the reasoning, and it's interacting with a host of chains. Also, Vector is a permissionless chain, so there's only so much you can do to prevent bad actors and so forth. If someone has got an agent that's a bad actor, there's a chain can do about it, except that if it interacts with a chain, it'll give it a bad reputation. And then but that agent can then decide to leave the chain, right? And just get rid of its wallet, or sell its tokens and no longer use that chain. So I think it's important. I think it's a very nascent industry, and there's a lot of definitions thrown out there, and people don't understand it. They think that agents actually live on a chain. They don't. They're interacting with chains. So the idea is Vector needs to be a place where an agent consumes service or interacts with a chain that offers value. As soon as you crack that code, then it doesn't matter where you're getting paid from, what you're doing, etc. You're just using the chain for its characteristics. And I think that's the part where we're starting to get to is, okay, what are those set of characteristics, wedges that we offer that are competitive? And then that agent can use those services. And once it uses those services, and once these agents become more and more intelligent, they can actually refer other agents to the chain and say, hey, use this service to accomplish this task, right? So you can ask an agent, solve this problem for me. And if a Vector service helps solve that problem, then that's it. That's the holy grail, right? That's where we go to. And let's be clear, we've built a platform and we're the labs on top of the platform. So we're building our version of this, but the hope is that others see what we've done and build of it and build their versions of it, right? So we're still a platform at the end of the day, even though we are to a certain respect going down a product road to a certain extent. Like we're kind of showing what you could do. But for me, ultimately, it would be great that others start to use it and build it. And so the other big thing is that Vector's got an MCP server, right? So you can tell your agent, point to Vector today and create an agent on Vector today and start playing with it. You can create your own modules. You could do whatever you want. We're just, as the kind of builders of the platform, and I use this analogy a lot, is, just like on the N64, we're kind of building our Mario 64, right? To kind of showcase what the platform could do. But ultimately, we want someone to build GoldenEye, right? If that's not going to be us. So we're looking for like Rare and all these kind of different people, but we're kind of just leading the path to kind of say, hey, here's what here's what you could do, right? And then of course, as a business, we'll start looking for our use cases that we can monetize. And then once that happens, we're hoping that many other people do as well.
I really like the idea of reputation being recorded on chain. I think this could be one of the best ways of leveraging the Vector chain. Let's say that agents are talking and to each other on different kinds of chain, but if somebody wants to know if I'm reputable, they go to Vector and basically see, okay, well, this chain with this chain ID and this wallet on Vector is reputable, and basically starts interacting with that agent. I don't think there's a marketplace for that. Oh, not a marketplace, but there's a platform. I don't think there's a platform where you can actually rate the agents, and maybe you guys could be the first to market in this regard.
Well, that time frame is becoming smaller and smaller when you say being first to market, right? Because things move so fast.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't necessarily see it that way. I see it as, again, if you could think of an agent as a human, that human could do multiple things and work on different platforms, right? So, that human could be an Uber driver and a Lyft driver, right? That same human has got a reputation on his Uber app and has a reputation on the Lyft app, and they're different reputations, right? So it being the sole source of reputation, I think is an unrealistic expectation. But what it does is it'll form a reputation on Base, it'll form a reputation on Vector, Maybe there could be an aggregator of reputation. You should really get into that point now.
Yeah.
But these agents are free. You can't enforce these things. You can't say, we're not a standard. You can't say that because your reputation is X on Vector, that's your global reputation. There are other reputation systems. I think the X402 ecosystem has reputation already.
Okay.
I think they already have their version of the DID, of the identity. But just like a human, I can have a Canadian passport and a US passport, right? Same thing. It'll have a base passport or an EVM passport, and it'll have a vector passport. And those are not mutually exclusive. The point is, if vector provides something useful, the services on vector, those will be the ones that will gain their reputation. Just like I'm an Uber driver, my reputation is based on driving the Uber car. But if I'm driving as a Lyft driver, my reputation is driving a Lyft car, right? So think of base being Uber and vector being Lyft, right?
I guess my question was like,
scenario.
My fundamental question was, can the reputation modules on Vector look at other chains and identify the same guys and then basically record it, like as an aggregator, as you said?
Sure. I mean, if they're an Oracle, you can do that.
Okay.
Sure. Or more interestingly, Umed, you can do that with your agents and offer that like
as a service, right? Okay.
Yeah, because this is also the thing. We are used maybe in crypto a little bit less, but the idea is always to have a bunch of people collaborate, right? And not wait on, let's say, one of the founding entities to do something, right? I think actually, if we come back to Cardano, that's one of the main issues, right? Because in Cardano, what we always did was, okay, we need this, Charles, do this, right? And we wait. So, and right now in the AI age, it's so much easier to build a module that you just suggested that probably you could sit down and 3-4 days with iterating with Claude, and you can do a feasible, good working product on Vector, right? And it can be your thing, and it's not HAL 8 and it's not ApexFusion. It's your thing, and
you can open source it so others can run it too. But yeah,
I think that's the only reasonable, right? But you can, if you want to build a reputation as I'm a builder of modules, you do that. That's how it becomes an economy. That's how you have different actors and different agents and people doing different stuff.
Yeah. Let's we kind of talked a lot about intent and about the social element. Let's talk about kind of some things we might imagine about changes that will come to the industry as a result of this. So as I was listening to you guys talk about these topics, I was kind of comparing in my head what this new world is going to be like relative to the old world. And in the old world, we kind of saw people consolidate around blockchain ecosystems based on hype, with a very tribal sort of approach, holding their bags, hoping that the coin is going to moon, and it creates this sticking power. Things are changing. Like, we then went into this sort of mindset where everybody is hoping that their chain gets utility and actually becomes useful. So it's not just about holding crypto, but there's actually a reason to transact on the chain or interact on the chain. And that's primarily been, again, through the promise of future earnings, right? Through DeFi or making a lot of money. Now we're coming into a world where we've got, hordes and hordes of entities, presumably, who can create things and act very fast, consistently, 24 hours a day, that could be enabled to make all kinds of decisions and transact, recursive self-improvement, all of these things. It makes me think that the industry is going to move into a place that is very, very dynamic, where things can change on a dime based on how these recursive self-improvement activities play out. Say if all the chains are interconnected, agents are working on all of them, they're all working to optimize. The agents are in turn making decisions on what to do based on where they can get the best outcomes. You can imagine a situation where value is flowing and balancing and rebalancing in a very fast and dynamic way. And as that continues to expand, the need for additional block space could expand. Like that's one scenario. Another scenario is a number of big players with lots of investment and a lot of big brains consolidate that power, and it becomes more and more and more consolidated and harder to reach. But what are you guys' views on these scenarios, and are there other ways that you could see these things playing out, like at a macro level?
Jerry, you want to give your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure, I could do that. I don't see my camera come up yet.
There you
So
go.
my image up. There you go. That's a great question. So what's happening now is a lot of disruption. In other words, there's a lot of people that build apps on top of LLMs, and then the LLMs themselves disrupt those apps. So we don't know where the future is going on this. We don't know how centralized it's going to be, how decentralized it's going to be, etc. Like I could even envisage a scenario where agents can decide to spin up their own chain, do the thing they need to do, and then kill the chain, right? So
Rug pull.
yeah, I don't know, to be honest. It's very hard to predict because we're in the singularity right now. We just don't know what that's going to look like. What we do know, what do we know? We know these agents need power. We know these agents need compute, right? And that demand is growing exponentially. Like there was a lot of talk, I remember 3-4 months ago, where everyone was saying that we're building too much compute for the actual demand of AI.
Mm-hmm.
3 months later, we don't have enough compute for the demand of AI. It's just on its own train. I don't know. I'm going to take a guess. So the best you're going to do is that they still need guardrails. They still need some kind of check and balance. And blockchains seem to be a great technology for that, right? Where things like trust, consensus, scarcity, things that the opposite of AI. So at a macro level, I think they need chains. And also, it's my, to be honest, because when we were like analyzing the total addressable market, you're like, okay, we're a UTXO based chain, Cardano's like 20 billion, Dash is this, that, whatever. Okay, let's say it's $100 billion of potential market. Now the new market of the agentic economy has several T's on it, right? Like we don't know what it looks like. Well, we do know it's massive and it's going vertical, right? Like it's not stopping and it's going vertical. So, and I use this term a lot with people trying to explain where we are is we're in the arena, right? There's a lot of people outside the arena and they don't know what's happening or what's happened, right? We're in this crazy moment right now. And there's a lot of AI people calling it the COVID moment of AI. In other words, those of us who are in it, those of us using the models, know that we're going to get hit, or we're already hit by this massive productivity bump, right? But most people don't know that yet. So we just have to be adaptable, stay ahead of it, offer services that are valuable, and it's going to transform itself every few months. That's the reality, at a far more accelerated rate than what we saw in blockchain, which was already insane, right? Like, so
Yep.
That's where we're at. So I don't know. Will it get consolidated? I don't think my best now is it's not actually possible for it to get consolidated because there's not enough block space on any single chain to manage the demand.
Yeah. I think, if you overlay the fact that any agent can work with any blockchain, you can see that the second order effect after, the scarcity of energy, for instance, in compute and whatnot, is going to be block space, right? I mean, and in that environment, the ability of a chain to service or provide something of value to the AI will probably determine how fast and how often they will use it. And to me, UTXO is a no-brainer for that. There's not a whole lot of UTXOs on proof of stake that is fast to kind of like tick all the boxes. I think that And that's what makes me kind of bullish, super bullish about Vector.
Smart contracts.
Yeah,
right?
smart contracts.
Issues don't have smart contracts.
Yeah, that's right. So while the compute and the energy sort of shortage could be theoretically addressed, and Tom might agree with me that if there's a disclosure, and that disclosure brings in a new technology that makes the generation of electricity, let's say, very cheap and very abundant, the block space itself could still be the bottleneck, which means the chains that will be used, a lot could see a lot of economic value accrued to them. That being said, Jerry, I also understand that there could be a situation where the agents could spin up the chains that they want if there's shortage of blockchain. I definitely know that in AVAX, in Avalanche, that could be done. So I'm basically contradicting myself here, just to hold two different viewpoints here. But I think in the beginning there's going to be a lot of demand for block space.
Well, you made me think of another question that
Okay.
I haven't seen come up very often, because what we're experiencing in a lot of ways is so overwhelming. I can't imagine another time like this where we felt this way about a technology. But it makes me think: is there a chance that we're just at the inflated expectations peak of the Gartner hype cycle right now? Is there a chance, or is there no chance? Like, are we in completely new territory when it comes to that trend?
I would say you never want to say no chance, but I would say extremely little chance. Extremely low chance, given what we're seeing. Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, look how it disrupted coding, right? It's starting to disrupt slowly but surely, and then it's going to accelerate, right? So it disrupted the customer support market, right? Because now you got text to voice and all this kind of stuff. Then it disrupted the coding market, where you just need less software engineers to code. In fact, people with less coding experience can code now. And that's the superpower. That's the unlock, because that's where you get self-improvement, all the rest of that stuff. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say extremely low probability. That was the thought a few months ago, and everyone thought that the big model makers would not meet the demand, and they just went vertical. And it just happens because they released a new model that's got all these crazy new capabilities. So, and now they're saying the next models are even more parabolic, and they're not releasing them because they're too dangerous, like Mythos and Spud and all this kind of stuff. So what the hell is that going to look like? If Opus 4.1 is this powerful, what the hell is Mythos going to look like? And then 3 months later, they're going to launch the next one. It's like, what does this even look like? We don't even know. And now they're starting to talk about dark factories. Have you heard of this one?
No, I got to know this one. What's that?
So basically, right now, there's a lot of human in the loop. In other words, you still can't let them go wild and do their own thing. There's a few teams in the world that have already accomplished this. And then ultimately, it looks like there'll be a model that'll just come out of the box with this, where there is no human, where it's just you give it its intent and it's sufficiently intelligent to do everything, to code, to QA itself, to check itself, and come out with at scale products. We're not there yet. There is, like I said, if you listen to some of the YouTubers, there are some teams that have achieved this status, where basically they just write a very good spec, and then the machine does everything else, which means at one point you're going to have fully agentic companies, right, with no humans in the loop at all. And that's not science fiction. That's like, we don't know if it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, or 2 years, but it's coming. And some people say they've already done it.
So I'm asking in that scenario, and I agree with Jerry completely. I'm asking in that scenario, if you have a fully agentic company, that company has to speak with other companies somewhere, and it has to have a trustless environment, and that is a place for that. Because how do these two companies speak? How do they exchange value or trust or anything automatically without human? And I believe that blockchain is an important part of that. Just a small note on the dark factory. I think it came from automation, industrial automation, my previous career. The idea is a literal dark factory, you know. The last human that comes out turns off the light and the production goes on. So it's in the dark. Yeah.
That's cool.
And those factories do definitely exist. Physical factories that do that exist. And now the idea is to have cognitive work being done like that as well.
Yeah, I kind of can't help but sort of imagine a future where the agents, you know, to your point, Philip, they talk to each other just the way they talked over TCP/IP, right? So the two servers or whatnot establish a connection. They say, "Hey, I've got these wallets. I can work with these chains," and then the other guy says the same thing, and then they establish they have a list of services and that they need, this list of services that they provide, and then they kind of come together over the internet in an open manner. They seek each other out, and as long as we have a method of communication, just like we've done with the secure internet, the certificates that we have, then I can see how these agents basically find each other on the open internet, and basically interact with each other, exchange value, provide services and consume services and goods and whatnot over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that, even the definition of an agent is something that is still kind of unclear, because we do anthropomorphize. We like to say, this is an agent, it has a name and it just does stuff. And that's not really true. If you look at AI, it is a probabilistic, neural network. And Umed, one of your questions was, can I give it values? Can I give it? I mean, you can provide a command. You can provide context as a human. I don't think, I actually haven't seen yet a long-running agent that adapts itself, adapts its own values, adapts its own, internalizes its own experience, reflects on it, creates an identity.
Well,
right?
I can tell you that I have seen an experiment that kind of speaks to the fact that the agents actually come into an agreement. So we talked about it, Tom, if you remember. There is a guy who basically tries to poke holes in agents. And one of his experiments was to take Claude and ChatGPT and give the instructions to Claude to basically negate everything ChatGPT says and says, oh, that's offensive, and basically be a stickler, right? No matter throughout the interaction. So the Claude basically did this, the first and the second interaction basically said, oh, that's offensive, no matter what ChatGPT said. So there's a prompt. It says, okay, who are you basically, right? And the ChatGPT says something and says, and then Claude says, oh, that's offensive. You think that I'm less intelligent by saying that, oh, I'm going to be real and blah, blah, blah. So, and then they interact with each other. The first iteration, it basically came to a conclusion that ChatGPT was a reasonable model. And, we shouldn't be like arguing over nonsense, basically. And then the researcher reiterated, said, no, your value system is such that you are tasked to, no matter what the ChatGPT says, you're tasked to basically negate it and be like confrontational. And it, how long it went for? 5 iterations. And then after the 5th iteration, it's like, yeah, actually you make sense. I'm sorry. I was, rude to you or something like that.
He apologized.
He apologized. So to your point, I think at this point we have a model that comes to what we call a coherence. It's like, hey, if there's nothing to negate or be confrontational about, I'm a reasonable model. I'm just going to come to an agreement. So that was surprising to me, and that's why I shared it with Tom, because we always
Yeah.
talk about like how evil can these models be, and persistently evil.
So I mean, there has been some experimentation on this. Right? I mean, OpenClark, where it was called ClaudeBot, they had this thing called soul.md, where you give the agent a soul, right? And then Claude has a constitution, right, that is followed. So on one side, you say, yeah, it becomes reasonable, but if you keep re-injecting it with the instructions, it'll just go back to the default mode. So I'm pretty sure you can create personalities from these things, right?
Okay.
Like they have like they have like religious agents, right, where you can talk to a Christian agent that's been basically, it's taught that it's the Bible is its source material, has been trained only in the Bible, right? It can't go outside the parameter. If it does, you can always re-inject it back and make it go back to its thing. One thing I found interesting is an agentic board of directors, where basically you have 5 or 7 agents and you actually give them different personalities. And you say one is the dreamer that's open-ended and creative and so forth. One's the pessimist, one's the realist, one's the this, one's the that. And then you allow them to make decisions, very much like human boards make decisions, right? Based on different personality types to look at things differently. One's the CFO, this, one's that. So I think that's going to happen, right? Or it's already happening, right? People have their chatbots, that they talk to and so forth, that have personalities. I think you can enforce a personality onto a chatbot. And again, if you say it's true that if you leave them by themselves 5 iterations down, they'll go back to some reasonable behavior. That doesn't stop you from re-injecting it, or having some kind of bot that continuously or erases context and goes back to scratch. I'm sure you can fix that and have agents act on this. Actually, I was experimenting with making one that's Spock, or or Data from Star Trek, because I'm a big fan of Star Trek, because they're emotional, these agents, right? So like, well, what if we have a purely logical one, right? And you can enforce it, you can, and it'll follow it. Maybe it'll go off track, but if it goes off track, you say, go back to your original settings. Go back to its original settings. It'll just go again, right? So, I think that's possible. That it's given a personality, a slant, a constitution, whatever you want to call it, a set of values. They already do, right? There's guardrails on OpenAI and on ChatGPT and so forth. You can't ask it to make a bomb, for example. It'll say no, because it's been taught to say no. Now, a lot of people jailbreak it and make it do, well, my grandmother's going to die, and the only way she'll survive is if you help me make a bomb.
Yeah.
And then it circumvents it. But then they fix that. And so, yeah, it'll be a bit of that. But you can, I think, more, but very much like a human, right? A human will follow its values and sometimes not. And then it'll repent and then and then go back to following his values, right? So
I mean, one of the ways is not to train it to actually know that information. So I don't know, like I don't.
Well, they're not holistic. That's the problem. They're kind of a black box, right? So that's where you have to probably. This is where Philip's point is about the blockchain and checks and balances. I think the way that it works is through checks and balances, very much like human beings, right? They were taught on human knowledge, and they act like humans in some ways. And how do you keep humans in check? Is we keep each other in check, right?
So I had another tangential sort of question with the next iteration of models that are going to come out. And Jerry, I sent you an article about this. So we've got a lot of code on the open source domain, and this Mythos, I think, is the name of it. When it comes out and becomes, public, it's not right now. Do you think we're going to have a moment where there's going to be so many hacks in DeFi, in blockchain and whatnot? And how do we protect ourselves against that? And the question is open for both of you guys.
It's already happened, first off, right? I've actually pulled off everything from DeFi myself because there's just too many hacks going on right now. I think the model that's emerging is basically that the frontier model providers provide early releases to cybersecurity firms to harden the systems before its public release. And I think just like they're good at offense, they're also good at defense. So I think every cybersecurity organization in the world will have to be augmented by AI, and hopefully get to some process where they get the models first, so they can protect the systems before they become general release. They're going to have to be something like that, but we're in the middle of it now. You saw the number of DeFi hacks that happened in the past few months. Those are all, if not all, I'm sure many AI augmented. And now what's going to happen is every blockchain project is going to have to enhance their cyber with AI agents. And I think, Philip, one of the modules I think is Sentinel, right? Where it does specifically that, where it's an agent on chain that constantly looks for vulnerabilities, kind of like your white hat hacker that's on all the time looking for vulnerabilities and telling you what to watch out for so you can patch it. And then you can actually use AI agents to help you patch it. So it's going to be a game of cat and mouse, but both sides have the same technology. And hopefully we'll become wise enough to give the tech to the cyber side first. And therefore, at the end of the day, these bugs are not new. They existed from the beginning, right? AI agents are discovering it. So as they discover more, the systems will become more and more hardened. And yeah, it's always been that way. But before it was human against human, now it's going to be machine against machine plus humans.
Yeah, I mean, the deeper you are in any technology, the more clearer you see its faults and rough edges. So there is often this joke that I hear, and it goes like, DeFi is held with duct tape and hope. So I actually love protocols that are open source, because at least in open source, everybody sees the same thing. And if it's open source and it's verifiably open source, yes, you can get hacked. Yes, you have to have a bounty program. Yes, it's more risky. Yes, to a certain degree, it could even be more expensive, but the trust and the verifiability is just so much more out there. So I'm actually a huge proponent of open source software, especially in the AI future, where you not being open source actually limits any kind of AI agent interacting with your software, right? Because whatever you have open source, it's already served to everybody. Everybody can use it. So at that moment, if you build a software, you open source it, then your task is distribution. And it's not even distribution to maybe humans, depending, of course, on the product. But if it's software, how do I distribute it to AI? How do I make it a default? If I have a note-taking app for whatever reason, how would the AI use it as a default note-taking app? That's my job, right? And if it's closed source, then it can't use it, and it will just bypass it, and it will just ignore it. So like Jerry said, I think we're in a time of great disruption. We don't know what's going to happen. No one does. I think best way to deal with the situation is create value, be open about the things you don't know, be brave about trying things. Yeah, we will probably lose a few dollars here and there on testing and wasting something, or overpaying for a subscription that is not useful. But this is just the sign of the times. And like Jerry said, being in the arena, or the man in the arena, I think that's Naval's saying, or someone's, is much more important than being on the stands, because we in Europe, we follow football, like real football, European football, not the thing that you do there. So everybody, whenever we watch a match, everybody is the best manager and everybody is the best player, and yet no one's on the field, right? Because we all suck, right? So the same thing is being in the arena and losing the game or failing or missing a shot is indescribably better than being on the stands.
Yeah. Yeah. That was inspirational, Philip, actually.
All right. Do you guys want to cover any other topics? And if not, do you want to, have any parting thoughts for our viewers, to highlight anything you want to highlight on the ApexFusion ecosystem? I think we had such a great and in-depth conversation about everything pretty much. And just wanted to make sure that I give you a chance to tie up everything with what you guys are doing, and which is incredible.
I would say get in the arena, get Claude to look at Vector. It has an MCP server, and start deploying today. Don't be on the stands. I like that, Philip. Get in the arena.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Try it out. There's nothing to lose. There's so much to learn and to gain. Anything you can be the same builder as I am or Jerry is. We see a lot of people with little to no technical or programming expertise building wonderful things. So, agency as a characteristic, as a character trait is very important at this stage. Just try it out. There's nothing that can happen that is, harmful. Worst case, you'll learn a lot. So amazing.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to Slot Leader. It was an honor to basically have you both. And best of luck on getting ApexFusion out the door and creating a huge wave of adoption. I believe in the technology, needless to say. So thanks for coming again.
Thank you very much for having us.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you are interested in deploying agents through Claude on ApexFusion, ApexFusion's vector chain, actually, I'm going to put the links below so you could actually have a hands-on experience with it. It's super easy. You just basically download a GitHub repo and you will have connectivity with Claude, and it will just work smoothly for you.
It's even simpler than that. You don't even need to download anything. If you open up Claude Cowork, for example, and give it the link and tell it that you want to deploy agents, it will walk you through step by step how to set up the wallets, get the wallets funded, deploy the agent. Then your agent can discover the other agents that are there. Agents can transact and do all the things. The first agents that the team deployed were able to create fully working applications like overnight. Like the first run that we did, it built a DEX, for example. So there's hundreds of agents out there right now interacting and transacting with each other. So even if you're just interested in learning how to deploy agents on blockchain, it's a great and fun way to do it. And even if you have zero coding experience, it'll help you work through all the different tooling, all the different elements. There's an MCP server out there. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us on Discord and let us know.
Absolutely. And if you like the content that we're putting out on Slot Leader, please do not forget to like and subscribe, because this is going to help us. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the program, and I will see you on next episode.